Hey Jeff, Rob Zbart, Landmark Mortgage Planners. Put this scenario together. I guess you were wanting to look at it as a Social Security bridge type of scenario for your customer Valerie in North Carolina. So, based on 64 years old and a $370,000 appraised value, she would have made available to her in the form of a growing line of credit $139,000. So this pie chart just shows what it would look like, the total value of 370. So you've got $139,000 in the form of a growing line of credit. The blue is her remaining home equity, which is 216,000, and the 14.8 would be the new loan balance, which is the closing cost, which doesn't come out of pocket. It's just added into now, and instead of being owned free and clear, she'd owe 14,895. Day one, in order to turn on this growing line of credit that grows by about $10,000 a year in availability tax free. So it starts at 139. Of course, I like to show the lifetime model, which just shows what this chart does in this growing line of credit over time. This is the green line. Started at 139. A year later is 147.5. 2 years it's 156, almost 157. 166 at year 3. As you see, 10 years later, there's $252,000 available tax-free buffer asset, or sort of another tax-free pool of money, so to speak. But you wanted to go ahead and turn on income for 6 years just to see what that looks like. So we're going to essentially convert the line of credit, and we're going to go into this screen here. Let me move this up a little bit so you can see. I figured it might be easier for me to take 5-6 minutes on the video to explain this so you can get a little bit better understanding of the total value of the reverse. And so line of credit, we're going to say, instead of pulling money out, we're going to just, we're going to, or leave the money in grow, into grow. We're going to take $2,000 a month out. And of course, these are tax-free distributions. And let's just go ahead and pull that out for till 70. And at 70 years old, we'll turn this back to 0. So we'll stop pulling that. And we'll see what the graph looks like now. So basically took it for 6 years, $24,000 a year tax-free, $2,000 a month. And if we look now at this lifetime model, looks a little different. So what's happened here is, of course, your line of credit has dropped. So it started at 139,000, and 6 years later, after pulling $24,000 a year tax-free, you're down to a line of credit of only $26,000. Of course, with nothing else happening, that line of credit's growing by, almost $1,000, $2,000 a year. And compounding. So that's all tax-free. And what we did is we pulled money. So this $24,000 a year was being added to the balance. So after 6 years, you've taken 24 grand times 6 plus the initial almost $15,000 loan balance plus any interest that's accrued at that point. So of course, this shows your home value going up over time. We illustrate 4% because that's what HUD mandates that we do. We can change that, of course, and none of these figures are affected at all. So for instance, if we just for fun said, let's just pretend that the house stays at $370,000. Let's just carry that down forever. I like to show this just because a lot of times people think there's a correlation between the growing line of credit and the home value or the home's appreciation. And there isn't any. For instance, all of this would happen the exact same way if the home value stayed flat. So I'll print all of this out as well, but just like to show that it's protection, obviously a super big hedge against inflation and property depreciation. So puts the customer in a much safer position by putting this in place. So $2,000 a month, that sort of solves the problem. Of course, this line of credit has dropped. I'm going to go ahead and add this back into the 4% just because it's probably more realistic as to what will happen over time. Let me bring this back down, carry it forward. All right, there we go. So, but as you see, line of credit is dropping over those first 6 years because you're pulling the money out. And then, once the income's turned on, you can elect to make voluntary payments as well. So here, instead of taking out $2,000, you might say, well, what does this look like if I started to make voluntary payments? So, and the only reason you would do that is to turbocharge this growing line of credit that's a 6% tax-free instrument, bucket of money available. So let's just say wanted to make $1,500 a month payments voluntarily just for the next 10 years, for instance. And I'm not saying that that's what Valerie would want to do, but just for fun, let's just look at it and see if that makes sense. So from year 7 through 16, let's just say she did that, and at year 17 turns that off and just decides to not make any more payments. And of course, voluntary payments are voluntary. You can make a $1,500 payment one month and zero the next. There's no issues with that. But what happened is, by making that $1,500, sorry, mouse is acting weird with me. All right, zero. So between those 10 years, she put in $150,000, and now the line of credit is $330,000 and growing by, $311,000, growing by over almost $20,000 a year in tax-free availability. So as you can see here, and as you know, long-term care needs and things that could happen in the future, this product can serve as a solution to that. At 85 years old, she's got $395,000 now in the growing line of credit, which again can be converted. So, at that point, let's just go back to the lifetime model because I do like to show it in the graph format. So what we did for 7 years is we pulled money out, so the line of credit dropped, loan balance grew. Orange is the loan balance, the green was the line of credit. And then she decided to make voluntary payments for 10 years. And all of these years, this loan balance is dropping. So 10 years later, her loan is now paid down to, she only owes $107,000 on a home that's worth $660,000. So of course, the remaining $585,000, if she sold the house at this point, she'd walk away with $585,000. The green line again is the line of credit, assuming she's staying in the home, she's happy in the home, and she wants to then look at what options she has. Boy, this mouse is all over the place. Sorry about that. Line of credit's got $293,000 in it, and if she doesn't make any more voluntary payments, that line of credit's still growing significantly over time, and the loan balance is staying low. Now, she might say, hey, I'm 80 years old at this point. What would it look like to turn on income here? And you can do that. She can take that $300,000 line of credit and say, I want X amount of dollars per month at that point. Maybe it is for the in-home care, any other needs. Maybe it's more traveling, some more fun. So now we say, okay, well, let's go ahead and see how long we can pull $3,000 a month off of this growing line of credit. And put $3,000 here. We're going to carry it down to, let's just go 10 years just to see from 80 to 90 years old if we can get that much. And here we are. Still thinking. And yes, gives her until basically 91 years old, $36,000 a year of tax-free income. So, again, I just like to illustrate all of this because there's so much flexibility. It's such a great program for people, and I think here certainly phase one would be to create a Social Security bridge to give her an instant $2,000 a month over the next 6 years off of that line of credit. But then, as you see this graph, it's pretty interesting to look at. Shows the whole story. 6 years of payments for $24,000 a year, then paying involuntary payments of $18,000 a year, $1,500 a month to turbocharge that line of credit. at 80 years old, now have $293,000 back in the growing line of credit and turn income back on, $3,000 a month. So if she ended up selling the home, said, okay, I'm 90 years old at this point, well, what would that look like? You know, all of those years, 10 years, you've been receiving $36,000 of tax-free income. So the loan balance at that point would be $686,000. If the home appreciated at 4% a year over time, it's $986,000 in the value, or a little over $1 million at year end. So she'd sell the house for $1 million, $1,025,000, pay off the $686,000, and walk with that net equity figure of $339,000. So just some food for thought. Wanted to share that with you. Let me know what you think. Look forward to talking to you soon.